Imagine a clean street where a single window in an abandoned building gets smashed. If no one repairs that window within a few days, the rest of the windows will soon be broken by passers-by. This is the broken windows theory in action. Neglect is a green light for more neglect. It sends a silent message to the neighborhood that no one cares and no one is in charge. Eventually, the sidewalk fills with trash, graffiti covers the walls, and the entire spirit of the street dies. But there is a reverse logic to this story that is even more powerful. It starts with one person who decides to stop waiting for a hero or a government department. Think of a man who lives on a messy block and decides one Saturday morning to simply sweep the patch of sidewalk in front of his own door. He isn't making a speech or asking for donations, he is just cleaning his own space. The next day, the neighbor to his left sees the clean concrete and feels a strange urge to pull the weeds from his own garden. By the end of the week, the lady across the street paints her rusty gate because the rest of the view is starting to look better. This is the first brick logic. You don't have to fix the whole city to change the world. When you manage your own small corner with excellence, you create a standard that others feel compelled to meet. Justice and order are not just top-down laws, they are bottom-up habits that start when one person refuses to live in the mess. You don't need a megaphone to tell people to be better, you just need to fix your own broken window. There is a famous story about a massive crowd of 5,000 people stranded in a remote place with no food. The leaders were panicked and calculated the cost, realizing they didn't have enough money to buy even a snack for everyone. In the middle of this logistical nightmare, a small boy stepped forward with a tiny wooden basket. Inside were just 5 small loaves of barley bread and 2 salted fish, barely enough for one child's lunch. To the experts, this contribution was a joke compared to the massive scale of the hunger. But the boy didn't care about the math. He simply made the move to hand over everything he had. The real power of this moment wasn't just in the multiplication of the food, but in the psychological shift of the crowd. When people see someone, especially a child, give up their only security, the atmosphere of scarcity vanishes. Suddenly, the thousands of people who might have had a little food hidden in their own bags felt the urge to bring it out and share. The math of sharing works because one act of radical generosity breaks the grip of fear and greed in others. It proves that not enough is often a lie we tell ourselves to stay comfortable. When you stop counting what you lack and start giving what you have, you trigger a chain reaction that feeds the world. You don't need to be a billionaire to solve a problem, you just need to be the person who is brave enough to put the first basket on the table. The miracle isn't just in the bread, it's in the hands that finally opened up because one boy went first. Consider a typical office or a family dinner where everyone is complaining about the boss, the economy, or the weather. The air is heavy with negativity, and everyone is trying to prove they are the biggest victim in the room. In the middle of this noise, there is often one person who doesn't join the chorus of griping. This person doesn't tell others to stop complaining, and they don't give a lecture about positive thinking. They simply keep working with focus, or they continue to treat people with quiet, steady respect. They are the silent witness, and their presence is more disruptive than a loud protest. When you remain calm in a room full of panic, or when you stay honest in a company of liars, you become a mirror. People look at your quiet consistency and they begin to feel the weight of their own excuses. You don't have to say a word to make someone feel ashamed of their laziness or their gossip. Your real and direct commitment to doing the right thing creates a vacuum that others eventually try to fill. This is the most practical form of leadership because it requires no title and no permission. It is the power of the person who just shows up and does the job well every single day without asking for applause. Eventually the shouters go quiet, and the complainers start looking to the silent person for direction. Influence isn't about who has the loudest voice, it's about who has the most solid foundation when things get shaky. The world is looking for people who are real enough to live out their values without needing a stage. Imagine a lonely, dusty road where a traveler has been beaten, robbed, and left for dead in the ditch. 2 highly respected men from his own community walk by, see the bloody mess, and quickly cross to the other side of the road. They have busy schedules, important titles, and holy books in their bags, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. Then comes a man from a rival group, someone the dying traveler was taught to hate and avoid since childhood. This outsider doesn't stop to ask about the victim's political views or his religious background before helping. He doesn't check if they share the same skin color, or if helping will improve his social media profile. He simply sees a human being in pain and realizes that the only thing that matters in that moment is a bandage and a ride. He uses his own expensive oil and wine to clean the wounds and puts the stranger on his own animal. He takes him to an inn and pays the bill out of his own pocket, telling the owner to charge him for any extra care. This is the ultimate real and direct expression of what it means to be a good person in the real world. True faith isn't measured by how many verses you can quote or how many ceremonies you attend on the weekend. It is measured by whether or not you are willing to bend your knees when a stranger is bleeding on the ground. The hero of this story isn't the one with the most knowledge, but the one with the most practical mercy in his hands. When you strip away the labels and the dogmas, all that remains is the simple choice to be kind to someone who can offer you nothing in return. In a world full of people talking about love, the person who actually stops to help is the only one who truly understands the mission. It is a story that proves that a stranger is just a neighbor you haven't helped yet. There was once a businessman who had lost everything in a market crash, and was walking home in total despair. He felt invisible to the world, convinced that his life no longer had any value to his family or his community. As he waited at a crosswalk, a tired construction worker finishing a 12-hour shift looked up and gave him a simple, respectful nod. That tiny gesture, a brief moment of human recognition, was the first time the businessman had felt seen in weeks. It gave him just enough strength to keep his head up as he walked into a local coffee shop a few minutes later. Because of that small spark of dignity, he spoke kindly to the overworked barista, who was dealing with a line of angry customers. The barista, feeling suddenly appreciated, decided not to snap at the next person in line, who happened to be a stressed-out teacher. The teacher went back to her classroom that afternoon and, instead of losing her temper, gave a struggling student an extra 5 minutes of encouragement. That student went home feeling capable for the first time, and he finally had the courage to tell his depressed older brother that things would get better. That older brother had been sitting alone in a dark room, planning to give up on life that very night, but his sibling's words changed his mind. A simple nod from a construction worker who was just being real ended up saving a life 3 steps down the line. We often underestimate the math of impact because we can't see the full chain of events triggered by our daily behavior. Your direct and honest kindness acts like a rock thrown into a still pond, creating ripples that reach shores you will never visit. You don't need a grand plan to change your life, you just need to realize that your presence in the world is a powerful force. One smile, one honest thank you, or one respectful nod can be the invisible thread that holds someone's world together. The most practical thing you can do today is to treat every person you meet as if they are fighting a battle you know nothing about. In a small town during a time of great political tension, a group of neighbors was suddenly told to turn against a family they had known for 20 years. The authorities arrived with clipboards and orders, demanding that everyone sign a document accusing this family of being enemies of the state. One by one, the people in the crowd began to sign, some out of fear for their own safety and others because everyone else was doing it. They whispered to themselves that it wasn't their fault, that they were just following orders, and that one signature wouldn't really change the outcome. This is what historians call the banality of evil, when ordinary people commit terrible acts simply because it is the easiest path to take. Then the pen was handed to a quiet man named Thomas, a local carpenter who rarely spoke at town meetings. Thomas looked at the paper, then he looked at the frightened children of his neighbor standing across the street. He didn't make a grand speech about human rights or give a lecture on morality to the crowd. He simply placed the pen back on the table and said, "No, I will not do this. These people have done nothing wrong." The official in charge grew angry and threatened Thomas with a fine, and then with jail, but the carpenter just stood there with his hands in his pockets. Because Thomas refused to move, the woman standing behind him in line suddenly felt a surge of shame and put her own pen down too. By the end of the hour, half the town had walked away without signing, and the authorities realized they could not arrest an entire community. Thomas wasn't a soldier or a politician, he was just a real person who decided that his personal bottom line was not for sale. A hero isn't always someone who runs into a burning building. Sometimes a hero is just someone who says no when everyone else is saying yes. Your integrity is the only thing you truly own, and when you refuse to participate in a lie, you give others the permission to be honest too. One person holding the line can stop a landslide of cruelty, proving that the most powerful weapon in the world is a simple, direct refusal to be part of the mess. We often spend our lives waiting for the environment to get better, waiting for a better leader, a better economy, or a better boss. But the most direct truth of human existence is that you are not just living in the environment, you are the environment for everyone around you. If you are honest, the world becomes a little more truthful. If you are kind, the world becomes a little softer. You don't need a 10-year plan or $1 million to start a movement of real change in your own life. It starts with a 1-minute spark. A single practical act of goodness that you do right now, without waiting for a reason or a reward. Maybe it's finally sending that apology you've been holding back, or picking up the trash that everyone else is walking past. Maybe it's giving a real, focused thank you to the person who cleans your office, or holding the door for someone who looks like they're having a bad day. These things might seem small, but they are the first bricks that rebuild the spirit of a community. Don't worry about whether your effort will last forever or if anyone will notice. Just do it because it is the real thing to do. The final spark isn't about being perfect. It's about being alive enough to care about the person standing right in front of you. When you stop complaining about the darkness and start being a small light, the shadows naturally begin to retreat. Your life is a series of moments, and each moment is an opportunity to be a silent witness to a better way of living. The world doesn't change through big speeches. It changes through billions of small, honest, and direct actions. So don't wait for the world to improve before you decide to be a person of integrity. Start your own movement today by being the neighbor, the friend, and the human being that you wish everyone else would be. The fire starts with a single spark, and that spark is sitting right there in your own hands.